Hi everyone, sorry it's been a while since my last stream. I've had a lot of work I had to do that would have made for very boring streams, but I'm starting to wrap up something that hopefully you'll find somewhat interesting, high-res graphics that I'm working on at the moment. But before I get into that, I just wanted to mention that for the first time in a stream I will have background music, which in this case is going to be classic Amiga computer music that was composed by Amiga community member, I hope I'm pronouncing this close to correct, Simone Bernaccia. So anyway, the music you'll be hearing is by him, and I think it's very nice stuff and appropriate to listen to while making video game graphics in general, I think. Also, you might also, you might mention, wow, I can't speak. Also, you might notice the next time you go to my Twitch channel that I now have a link to both the music by that musician and a click to my Redbubble account, which is where you can purchase merchandise such as t-shirts, wall clocks, pillows, duvet covers, lots of different things with Bitbeam Canon graphics or some of my other artwork on them. It's a new way that you can support my streams or products or projects like the game engines I'm working on or the video games I'm working on. So that's it. Without further ado, let me explain the project I'm working on at the moment, which is, like I said, a high-res graphic. It started many years ago. This is the old version. Many years ago, I was very short on time, and we needed some artwork to show off some of the basic features of a very early version of Spriter back in the day. And because I was so short in time, I created this monster from separate body parts. As you can see, a very, very rough, loose, sketchy style. I just did not have time to do a more detailed, finished-looking illustration to animate. But now we're working on creating little teaser videos showing off the progress in the development of Spriter 2 and what you will be able to do with some of its new features. And so I took it as an opportunity to sort of artistically redeem myself in this particular design by redoing this with a lot more time and attention to detail invested. And so this is how the new version is looking so far. So as you can see, I'm working at a higher resolution and really spending a lot of time to add a lot more detail and just much more carefully render the whole thing. And it's still in lots of different layers for all the component parts so that it'll work well with modular animation. And so that's what I'm going to be working on for this stream. Hopefully I'm going to get it at least finished enough so that we can start using it for those trailer or teaser videos like I had mentioned. So yeah, I'm just gonna dive in very shortly. I guess I should mention I will be using an absolutely fantastic graphics program, which is what you see in front of you right now, which is called, it's got a very strange name, Clip Studio Paint. It used to be called Manga Studio. It's got an incredibly powerful set of features specifically for making comic book pages and comic book art for in high-res print or otherwise, but also it's just in general a fantastic graphics program, even if you want to make screen resolution type graphics for video games and things like that. So an excellent program that you can often see on sale, yeah, it really just, I can't speak highly enough in general for the quality of the program, its feature set, its performance. And also I work with a Wacom Cintiq monitor, and its support. I have the fancy monitor that also has touch support, and it really supports it incredibly well. Right now I'm just doing the 2-finger touch and pinch to zoom in and out. I can do the 2-finger touch and then rotate my hand, my 2 fingers, to rotate the entire canvas. So if I wanted to work on the head, I'm panning now with 2 fingers. I can do the sort of pinch to zoom out, in and out. So if I really wanted to work on a very specific detail, I can rotate the entire canvas and zoom in however much I need to really get perfect control. And what's really cool is that they did a great job. There's a lot of programs that have real trouble if you try to rest your hand, the side of your palm, on the screen and try to draw at the same time. Basically the equivalent of your mouse pointer will teleport all over the place, and you'll get all kinds of inadvertent marks and lines drawn on your drawing. And in this case, let me pick a specific layer. So I'll just quickly draw a fake tattoo on this guy's shoulder here. Oops, I don't have a brush picked. That would certainly be helpful. So who knows, some kind of X-Wing or Star Wars type spaceship or something. That will turn it into a cliched anchor or some strange version of it. But as you can see, my hand, or you might be able to see, my hand is resting right on the screen. I have never gotten an errant brushstroke or anything like that. So it works incredibly well. Anyway, so that's it. Talking up the program, you'll see some of the other features I'll be using. I must say I am by no means an expert with this program. Most of my time doing digital art, I use ProMotion for pixel art, which is very different than this. Or in the industry, I've used Photoshop a lot. So, but I must say, moving over or sideways from Photoshop to this program is pretty painless, and its feature set is fantastic. So, anyway, in general, if you see me making any silly workflow mistakes, that's due to my own ignorance and should not reflect poorly on the program. And I'm not in any way paid to endorse the program, so this is just testimonial from a longtime graphic artist. Yeah, it's a really good program. But anyway, I might as well start the background music that I had mentioned. Hopefully it won't be too distracting for anyone. And I will just start working on the graphics. And one of the big things I left to do, it's certainly mostly done, but one of the things that I wanted to do to keep it more in keeping with the original design is give him a big head of hair. So I've very roughly created 2 layers to sketch in that hair, and now I have to just go in and detail it. So I'm using this little feature here under Operations, Select Layer. I hope there's a hotkey for this, but I haven't found it yet. But anyway, if I just click on any graphics, then it'll auto-select that particular layer, and then I press B to get back to the brush tool or basic drawing tool that I'm using, which in my case is Oil Paint Flat Brush. Is what I've been using. And just like in Photoshop, if I hold down the Alt key, it gives me a color picker. I can just grab colors from the beard I've already done, and we'll just start adding some little details, some more color variation. Oops! And here I was speaking up about how well it worked, and suddenly I teleported the entire thing facing the wrong way. Never done that before. I don't know how I did that. Maybe I was accidentally holding the equivalent of the left mouse button, right mouse button on the stylus. I don't know. But like I said, if you see problems in my workflow, it is almost certainly not the cause. The program itself is almost certainly not the cause, and it's my lack of experience with the program. So anyway, I'm just layering in the Alt key again. Rotate this back to the way it belongs here. There we go. E to go to the eraser, and I'm going to switch it to a very clean eraser so I can sort of refine these outlines a bit if I need to. Alright, good enough for now. Back to B for brush. Pick a lighter color. Shrink the brush. Let me zoom out a little bit. Alright, so I've got a very strong light source hitting that shoulder there, and so it's coming from the strong right, slightly upper right. So I'm going to keep that in mind. Gonna go later still and stronger. And I don't know if you can tell, but the pen pressure is simultaneously controlling the thickness of the stroke, but also the opacity to some degree. Oops, that was sloppy. Alright, so that's the general idea for that. And so, as you might know from past broadcasts, I save all the time. I've lost far too much work in the past. I've lost far too much work in the past with a power outage or a computer crash. Back in the silly days when I would only save after finishing pretty massive milestones or after an hour or a half hour of working. If that happens to you a few times, you learn how to save every few minutes. Anyway, so that's how that's working. As you saw, it's all in different layers, and I noticed when I was showing things before, I can't remember what body part it was, but I wasn't done. Let's see. If I hold Control and click on any opaque pixel, then I can left click and drag to move an entire layer, and that was just a quick way for me to check what things looked like behind this particular layer. So I'm going to use Operations, select layer again, select that particular layer and hide it, and I can see I never finished the art behind that particular layer. So now I'm going to select this lower leg on this side, make my brush bigger, make sure I'm in drawing mode again with the B key, and I'm just going to finish this off. And we're basically just creating these sort of nubs, these circular sort of ball jointy shapes for the parts or the limbs that sort of go under the other limbs, so that when in modular animation you can shift things around a little bit, and basically if this shows up a little bit sort of on the edges, I'll show you better what I'm talking about in a minute, but that's the general idea. is to get something that won't look weird or cut off if a little bit of that shows during the animation process. So now that I have that, we'll bring this layer back and you'll see how that looks. And for example, let me save again. I made a little progress, why not? I will press Control T. Let's see, front lower leg. Yeah, that's the right one. Why didn't Control T work? All right, let's see. Cancel. What does it think is selected? All right, so I'm going to rectangular select. Oh, that's awesome how I selected all. All right, so I selected that particular thing. And now we can do Control T, and I can move its pivot point to be at the knee. That'll make it more natural. And now if I rotate, the screen's updating a little slowly because I'm screen sharing. But you can see how that works. I've basically got a fake joint, and I can move it around now to some degree, and it won't look weird if things are a little bit offset a little differently because of the rotation. So that's how it works to so I'm canceling those transforms and deselecting. But just to give you the idea of why it's a good idea to have sort of cleaned up, rounded joint areas. Let's see if I've done that already for this. So I'll select the upper arm and hide it. Alright, so it's the forearm I need to hide. Alright, that's already got a decent looking circular nub there, and now I'll do the same thing. I'll select the hand and see if I did the wrist. No, I did not yet do the wrist. It's not really very clean, so I'll select this layer, press B. So now we're just going to, and that color's a bit off, there we go. Let's see if I can paint across, there we go. Oops. Apparently Alt works as undo, which is I'm definitely not used to. So in certain circumstances, Alt is undo. I'll have to learn what those circumstances are to avoid making that mistake again. Anyway, this part doesn't have to be great, it just has to not look bad if a little bit of this ends up getting exposed under the other limb. There we go. Blend it out a little more, taper that a little more. Oops. That's fine. So there, this guy's seen battle, I think. Alright. Save again. So let's just keep checking. So I'm going to use make sure brush is selected and use the control and left click and drag trick, and then just undo to check all the limbs to see if anything has, so that should end in a circular shape. So I'm going to undo my movement, use operation, select layer, select that hoof, hide the hoof, and then click again on this lower leg, press B. So I can go down here. Oops, let's see. There we go. Alt key to select the color right from the image. And oops, I just accidentally panned again. There we go. Just round this off so that if anything gets moved around a little bit, we won't end up with a missing part of a body. There we go. Why am I suddenly tempted to give this guy a wooden peg leg? Oops, I'm still on eraser. There we go. He's a pirate now. Alright, there's that. Save again. And we'll just keep doing that. I'll press B. This first is fine. That is fine because of the way I have to attach it to that arm with the bicep in front. It's a little tricky. Alright, he's got his underwear on, that's good. That would have been embarrassing. Alright, I think we're all good. Let me see what's behind the head here. Oh yeah, he's got an eyeball, an eyelid, teeth and tongue all separate for fancy animation at a later date. But I think everything is good except now for, let me hide the torso. I need to finish off this hair, so I'm going to select that layer. Press B to get back into drawing or painting. Alt to select the color. Shortly I'm going to hide these other layers that are in the way as well, so I can really finalize and fill in the shape for the hair, because I want to be able to eventually animate some pretty cool movements with the hair really sort of swinging around or getting blown or reacting to his movements. So I want to make sure it's fully detailed around all sides. It's going to stay mostly black in this area since it will be heavily shadowed, but on the very edges I'll add some of this detailing and coloring. And that's right, I've got that other layer which I will discuss later. Make sure I'm recording. Alright, so there's that. Click on this layer, hide that. Get rid of all these layers, just so we can see what we're doing. I should group all of these layers into groups so I can hide them all in one shot, but like I said, I'm very much a noob with this program still, so don't fault it. Alright. Yep, should get rid of the arm too. I'm sure someone who uses this program frequently is screaming at their screen, "You idiot, you should be doing this or that," but sorry about that, if that's the case. It goes to show you with a good program and a lot of experience, you can do some pretty nice stuff, even when your own ignorance with that given program is working against you. If you just work consistently and carefully, you can do some pretty nice stuff. Just fill all this in right there. Brush giant, make quick work of this. There we go. Here we go, looks about right. Now this end is looking a little too simple. Oops. How did that get so... Whoa! There, I did it again. No idea how I'm doing that accidentally. There. definitely. It's some combination of holding a key and then pressing my entire palm on the screen seems to, some combination of that seems to be causing me my scrolling issues. Looks good enough. Alright, so now just to add more of those highlights, I can steal the colors right from this. So we'll give it some edge lighting, so to speak, some pin light, or not pin, some rim light on this side here. Wavy and scraggly here. So I'm just pressing later to get thinner and less visible lines and details. I'm only going to go in about this far with that, and with this fairly dark color. I just suddenly decided to make sure I was drawing on the right layer. That's the biggest nightmare of working on high-res art, is after doing a bunch of details all over the place, you realize you accidentally were not keeping track of which layer you were working on, or layers, and you end up with a bunch of stuff that you either have to completely redo or have to carefully cut out and repaste onto the appropriate layers without moving them off of where they should be. So make sure you never do that. Always check which layer you're drawing on very, very carefully. Alright, so now for the edge or rim light on this side. Probably will never see this side here, but just in case we'll do some small amount of detailing. There we go. And now I just pick a lighter color, but I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to save. Alright, file, save. Alright, pick a lighter color. Same thing. Whoops. And it's always good, before you think you're done with anything, to go back, turn on the other layers, and see if it looks good and appropriate and properly lit and detailed compared to everything else that it has to coexist with. So there it is. This is going to be cool. Let's see if I can turn all layers on. Show all other layers. Oh, well, that was quick enough. Alright, so it looks like I can afford to add a touch more detail in there and in here, but we mostly have what we need. Sorry for the squeaky chair. Let's see. I do see now that we have this dark hair. I've got some sloppy outlines on this horn, so I'll just fix that. So I will select the horn layer, press E for erase, make sure I have the very sharp erase, very clean sharp erase tool set. Why isn't this erasing? Ah, that's right. I've got two separate layers for this horn. I'll explain why in a moment. front horn tip, there we go, and front horn. So now let me fix this. Again, why isn't this erasing? There we go, that erased. There we go. So as you can see, he has this pointy ear. That one is because that's his head. All right. Cancel, press the wrong key again. All right, so that's a bit better. B. All right, so as you can see, he has this ear, and the ear has to go, let's select that layer. It goes in front of the base of the horn here, but then it has to go behind this part of the horn. So that's why I broke the horn up into two images. I have the tip of the horn, something like this, on a layer that's further up in the stack. So horn tip. So you can see now I have to fix that too, and I also have to nudge it over, which sadly I don't know how to do with the arrow keys, which would certainly be handy right now. No screaming at your screen does not, I can't hear you when you do that, so you'll just have to deal with my lack of knowledge. But anyway, there's that. Go back to the eraser, quickly fix that same problem. Of course, I could just cut out what I just fixed on the other one, but you get the idea. And I clearly have some stuff I didn't erase there. So that's the idea for that. And then I want to look at this ear and see what's going on there. Okay, so I have some light pixels I should get rid of here with the eraser. And then I've got the head itself behind the horn and the ear. Let me save. So the ear we will hide, and the horn, see that there? I've never finished that. So I'll finish drawing this in. Brush tool. There we go, and then this darker color looks, oops, see, I just started drawing in the wrong layer. It's so easy to forget you're not just working on a cohesive painting image and that you're working in layers. So now I've got the head layer, and this is part of the head image, so I'm just going to fill this all in this darker color. Alt key to select. And actually, while I'm working on the head, I will, let's bring in some of these more rich red colors here. All right. And while I'm working on the head, I will also cast a little shadow at the hairline. The hair is a separate layer, so this is just going to help plant the hair more naturally on the head. That's fine. Alright. Can make that a little darker still. Pick this darker color. There we go. That's good. Now I'll save it. Bring his ear back. It's looking better. This is looking too indescript now. We're losing what should be the edge of his jaw against his neck, so I'll deal with that shortly. I do have this heavier shadow color at the base of the neck, so if I want, I can select the torso layer, press B, and let's see if we can bring some of that color up here. The head image is up that high. So let's just do this, and then reselect the head layer, head. There we go. Press B, and with the same color, I'm just going to bring that up like that. All right. And so now it's a matter of just moving around and making decisions to improve things. Oh, there is a cool feature I did want to show you going down to his hooves here. I noticed I had made his the hoof on this side too perfectly vertical, and I want it to slope more like this from top to bottom. So I wanted to show you a cool feature. I'm going to select this layer in general, but now I'm going to copy. So I'm going to use the lasso. To grab that, Control C, Control V, so that pasted a copy in place. And now I'm going to choose Edit, Transform, Mesh Transform. And this is really cool because it allows me to warp. Oops. If you grab the vertices, you're warping, you're changing how the thing gets deformed. Which, as you can see, works really well. So I can make this slope as extreme as I want to, or as subtle as I want to. I think that's pretty good in general. We can always do it more if we need to, so I'll press Enter, compare it to the other one. It's a little more forward facing, so I think that's pretty appropriate. And now I'll go back into the layer behind that copy that I made and select this one, and we'll do the same thing. So we've selected that, Edit, Transform, Mesh Transform, and we'll just drag out here, 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 and something like that. Enter, deselect. That looks much better, more appropriate with the angle and more in keeping with the other hoof. So now I will merge my copy layer. I select the layer that I had made, the copy, and I will just hold Control and press E, and that merges it down to the previous layer or the layer below, exactly like Photoshop does. Alright, making progress. I'm going to pause for a second, and I'll be right back. Can you pause? Maybe I can't pause. That's alright. I'll tough through. I just take a sip here. Alright. So, just keep moving on. I'm going to go back to the back hair. Select that layer, press B, make my brush a tiny bit bigger, select the colors from the hair, and I feel like we could definitely afford to get a little bit of scraggly detail in here, and then brighter highlights on the rim there. So first we'll just start with the darkest stuff. Use the Alt key to pick a lighter color. And don't go all the way in there, but some very bright colors. Just touch some little areas near the edge. And then the important thing is to go back and turn off those layers again, so we can make sure that the detail back there isn't just only existing in the areas we can see right now, because when we animate it and the hair blows up or moves way up and we see more of it, it needs to be fully detailed. So I will quickly hunt down those layers again that are in the way. I guess I'll just do the quick way that I know from Photoshop. Select that layer, right click, hide all other layers. There we go. like it too bright, I'm just going to select that dark base color and sort of draw right on top of the thing that I made too bright. Or of course I could undo and just redo a new stroke, but there we go. Should be fine. And now I can show all their layers, and we've got the monster back. Alright, one thing I know I wanted to do was add some more specific details to these hooves, specifically some scratches and cracks to really put some more wear and tear on this character, more visual interest. Let's see, so I'll select that layer. I also, in my mesh deforming, I created a little seam here, which I'll get rid of. At least I think that's when that happened. I think that's why that was there. Alright, so just clean this up a little bit first. There we go. Alright, so now I'm just going to pick little areas, let's say down here. I'm going to take a crack out of it, so I'm going to actually change the silhouette a little. Right, and then we can build from that. We can just draw. So I'm shrinking the brush quite a bit, and then I'm pressing harder to get a dark line. And then I'm going to cast a highlight there, or actually the light is coming from the right instead of the left, so the light should be on this side. I forgot where my lighting was. That's an important thing to never do. Never forget where your light's coming from. So there's another crack. So let's do another little trick. I'm going to grab a piece from, let's say right here. So I'm going to make a crack sort of shape, Control C, Control V. So I've got a new layer in place, exactly where it was copied from. And now I'm going to go into tonal correction, hue saturation, and I'm just going to bring down the brightness this way a few degrees, and deselect, and you can see I've got like what looks like a little stain, but now I'm going to cast a shadow. Let's see, the light source it's the opposite light source I'm used to using, so this is a challenge to my poor brain at the moment. So this side's going to get hit with the light, and this side, and we'll do down there a little bit too. That's too much, so darken that back down, and then we'll just add a little more texture in it. So we've got like layers, and now we've got a like a chip basically was taken out of the hoof. Hope you can see that well. So I'll do that a few more times, but each time I do it, if I like the results, I'll just merge that layer down so I don't end up with a million layers. But that's how I'm going to add some battle damage to his hooves. Alright. I hope this is useful, entertaining, and helpful to some people. So just more cracks, more highlights from the appropriate sides, if I can remember which sides those would be. There we go. And I think we'll add another one, another little smaller one here. Tonal corrections, hue, saturation, luminosity. Okay, deselect. time we'll add a few lighter specky details in there. That's a word, right? Specky. There we go. Alright. And won't go too crazy with these kinds of details, but you can see it adds a lot of visual interest. And we'll just do a few more. Let's take a chip right out of here now. So the first step is to, if you're doing it from the edge, it's really important. This is something I nag a lot of people who I'm trying to help out improve their portfolios. You might want to look at previous videos I've made where I'm reviewing people's portfolios and giving them advice on how to make things a little more professional level. Is if you've got some element to your design, like, you basically shouldn't even bother with it unless you're going to sort of get the full mileage out of it that that particular detail has to offer. So if you have a detail that's on the edge of something, then make sure you affect the outline, the contour, the actual stroke. Let me give you a good example. So let's say you're drawing a character. I don't know if you've ever looked close at sort of a classic Captain America design, but basically, let's say this is his oops, what am I drawing with here? Let's see. Yeah, okay. So let's say we have Captain America's shoulder. In the classic design, this is his bicep, this is his shoulder right here, this is his triceps, forearm. Okay, in the classic design, it was actually scale armor. So if you can imagine, you had a whole bunch of little shapes like this, and a lazy artist, even on a close-up, would just draw the outline as though the clothing is smooth, and then just draw these little shapes in like this. But if you're drawing a real close-up, the edge should look something like this and should correspond, if that makes sense, and it'll just look so much more interesting and realistic if you bother to change the actual contour to match the actual structure of the design. So that's why we actually bother to chip into the outline when there's a chip at the edge of something instead of leaving that flat. It makes a massive difference in the overall quality and basically how interesting your illustration is and how much a given detail actually does its job, so to speak. So anyway, let's make sure that I was working all with the right layer. Yes, I was. So now I'm going to give this foot similar treatment. Let me save. Alright, I'll just quickly clean up where I was sloppy here. Oops, wrong key. Alright, what am I doing wrong? Did I not select this layer? I did not select this layer. You should have yelled at me. What? Maybe you did and I wasn't listening. Alright, so select layer, press B. Oh, that's not the color I wanted. Something like this. That's good enough. Alright. So now let's give this a bigger bit of damage here. Control C, Control V. Did I do it again? No, I chose back foot. Oh, thank goodness. Yep, okay. So now I have the copy, edit, tonal, hue saturation. Brightness down a bit, not too much. Okay, deselect. There we go. Alright, so coming from there, so the shadow's going to be on this side. Good enough. Right, let's get something closer to white from this edge. There we go. Looks good, and then we'll just roughen up the texture in here a bit. Build a crack right off of that. All right. So. What other kinds of damage do you want in here? Chip out of here. E to erase. Why isn't E for erase working? I'm still working on that copy. I'll merge that down. Here we go. And then we'll do another chip here, and we can even do that. That. I think that'll be good. And another chip here. And erase. Alright, I think that'll do. Hope you can see what a difference taking a little time and adding those kinds of details. I mean, if you think of it, it's being a concept artist or game illustrator. Your job isn't just to render things and to necessarily make something look pretty or cool. Another part of your job is a form of storytelling, and adding little details like that tells you a lot about the character, even if on a subconscious level, and makes things visually much more interesting. It makes the entire world more believable. And obviously something like this, battle damage, is going to make a monster character all the more real, and therefore all the more frightening and imposing. You know, a monster with no battle scars or damage is going to look more like a plastic toy, or a creature that's actually never engaged in violence, if that makes sense. So that was the most of it. There's a couple other things I do want to do. Let's see. But it is good to take a break on occasions if you have that luxury. Let me just clean up this forearm here a little bit. I don't like how loose this the shading is here. I'm just using very light pressured circular strokes to get a still painterly rendering style and effect, but just a little more smoothly blended than what I currently had sketched in. It's just a little too sloppy down here for my liking compared to the rest of the illustration. Did I choose the forearm? Back forearm, yes I did, thank goodness. Alright. Make that shadow a little darker down here and blend into it. There we go. Alright. And let's take this forearm vein I've got going. And let's actually bridge it up here. Carry that over. Yeah, fine. Just kind of blend these two areas together a bit. They were looking a little too separate anatomically. Even muscle groups that are separate, don't forget you have layers of fat and flesh over it, which is going to smooth it out, make it more into a cohesive whole body part instead of a bunch of component parts sort of strapped together. That's another very common beginner artist mistake, is to sort of show off your knowledge of anatomy too much, and your character, especially muscular men, end up looking like you know, zombies with absolutely no body fat, or instead of skin, their exposed muscle tissue has just been spray painted with a skin tone color. Anyway, looks better. So back forearm, that's good. All right. So by the way, I just realized I will probably end up making, if you like this character, I will probably end up adding this to the Redbubble art collection. So if you want to get a finished version, I'll whip up some quick kind of minimalistic abstracted background for him too, and add him to Redbubble so you could get him on a t-shirt or coffee mug or something. So as you can see, when you're working on something like this, you're going to get down to more and more nitpicky changes. There are a couple other more important techniques I want to show you though. Stuff that can help if you're working in a painterly style like this, you can end up getting a much richer looking illustration much faster. I'll show you how shortly. Bugging me how light that eyebrow was. Oh, just did it again. Not sure how I'm doing that. Oh, well. There we go. And let me go back to the horn. There we go. I feel like it should be a bit darker in places, so I'm going to steal the dark color here. Let's hide that ear, in fact. Cast shadow there. Really darken that up. And as you can see, I'm using a sort of pointillism style of laying down my color sometimes, just to keep that textured, more organic and painterly look to the illustration. There we go. And I'm working on the horn, that's good. Now for the heck of it, this will never show up, but let's go back to the head layer. Head layer, there we go, B. Just blend that better, it was bugging me. We'll even cast a shadow from the horn, even though no one will ever see this. Then again, we could, since it's going to be made in Spriter 2, which will eventually have character map support, we could theoretically allow for customization, so you could choose to make a character with hair or bald. Of course, we can't easily because I added the shadow to the hair directly on the head, I think. Well, I could fix that at a later date if I do want someone to be able to choose between a bald or a haired version of the character. But anyway, it looks better. As you can see, darkening those colors planted the horn behind the ear better and into the head better. It brings it back into the distance to connect to the cranium better. Now that that's darker. This definitely looks a little sloppy here. Something's missing. So I'll just add it to this layer here. So we're just gonna make this a little thicker and add a little more detail there. There we go. Double check I was drawing on the right layer. Yes, I was. Alright, so let's hide his underwear as well, which also will never show up. So there we go. Let me fix that coloring under there, just in case. This is all mostly stuff that will never show up, but this will help me if someone ends up animating this and somehow any of this gets exposed. I don't want any weird seams. Torso layer, that makes sense. So again, if I was, let me make sure this music, I haven't even been paying attention. So let's make sure I'm playing a whole playlist. I can't even see what I'm looking at here. I'm new to using this particular music player. Yeah, it just changed songs. Okay, and yep, shuffle is on. So hopefully it hasn't been repeating the same song the whole time. I haven't been listening. Alright, so show all of their layers. Alright, a little more water. Actually, I remember another little thing I wanted to do, and that was to the lower legs. Pick this layer. For one thing, the shadow is too muddy and grayed out. It should be pinker here. There we go. And then I did want to sort of lighten the shadow here. It was a little too separated from the rest of the anatomy. Like I said, it gets, once an illustration reaches this point, you just get more and more nitpicky. There we go. And same thing here. This is really too strongly separated. Make sure I pick that layer. There we go. I feel like he needs another vein across here, so light is coming from this way, so I'll cast the shadow on this side. Make it really follow the curve of that calf. So there's the shadow. If I had more room, I would, oops. There we go. Let's branch this vein out. Brighten up a tiny bit right there. Alright. And then if it is too strong, which it currently is, we can knock back that shadow in key places. The highlight in key places and make it a much more subdued, subtle vein. There we go. Make sure I was working on the same layer, the right layer. Okay. Save my work. Alright. Okay, now we can talk about that layer that I had mentioned and that technique that I said I was going to talk about to make things look richer very quickly. And especially because I'm working in layers, I can duplicate a layer and then change its brightness, contrast, hue, and saturation, and then erase most of it to reveal the original version of the layer, to add a huge amount of richness and additional lighting and shadow. So I had already done that. Let me show you the torso here. So here's the torso layer, and you'll see I made a copy of the torso layer, and then I darkened it, and then I used a fuzzy eraser to erase almost all of it except for a bit near the neck, so you can see how that looks. So here's how it originally looked, and you can see it was far too bright here. The head and beard and horns should be casting shadow, and we want this to fall under the head to separate the head better from the body. So that's what I did, and that actually is probably too subtle, but you can see you can get really nice effects. That looks like you spent a million years with creating subtle colors when you did not. So I'm going to delete this layer and show you how I did that. So I'm just going to right click, duplicate layer. So I've got a copy of the entire torso perfectly overlaying over the torso, and now I'm going to go into excuse me, like before, tonal correction, hue, saturation, luminosity could work. Bring down the brightness, so you can see I'm creating a shadowed version of the entire torso, and we can go as dark as we feel like, and then let's do it really dark actually. And then we can shift the hue if we want to as well. I don't really want to do that in this case, so we'll bring that back to 0. Excuse me. And then we can bring the saturation down as well if we want to make it a little more blued out shadow. Click OK. Now I'm going to press E for eraser. I'm going to pick soft if I want a soft edge, and the softness of the edge will depend on how big your brush is. So, for example, if I want a fairly strong shadow but not too strong, now I'm just going to start erasing out. So I decide how close I want to get, and then I can cast a very specific shape of the beard, for example. So if you want a really strong shadow, that's a quick way to get it. And then the smart way, once you get the general, of course, and the cool thing is you can sort of sculpt. You can see now, let me undo a little bit. All right, so let me quickly just redo what I did. Cast a shadow for the beard, but I'm going to slow down now, and I'm going to press very lightly, and you can see I can create much more extreme shading, and I can sort of, so I'm pressing very lightly now, so I can really push the pecs and then the abdomen into shadow because he's bending over a bit, and then right here I'll decide to start pulling it back out of shadow. Right, and then here, out of shadow even more. So I can very carefully add a heck of a lot more extreme lighting and shading to really emphasize the depth. There we go. So I'm pressing extremely lightly to have the most control. Alright, so now watch the difference here. You'll see how quickly, look at that. You can see how you can get very realistic and very rich effects extremely quickly, and the cool thing is, so you can see the little bits you missed, which often looks good if you leave it, but anyway. So, where did my mouse pointer go? There it is. And the other cool thing is you can actually change the opacity of that given layer to change how strong that effect is. So there's the maximum effect, and then lightening it up as much as we want to. So that's the very last step I'll do. Once I'm really happy with everything else, I will be using this trick to make the finished product even richer and yeah, just richer and more realistic looking. make it look very quickly, make it look like I spent a heck of a lot more time on it than I did. So I hope that little trick is handy for you. Let's see, I'll save my progress. I'll probably delete that layer and redo it again later once I'm really happy with everything, but it's getting close to done. Or done enough, I should say. The last big thing I really should work on, and then I'll probably call it done, is tweak the teeth a little bit here, especially the bottom teeth. So I made a layer before called Skull Sketch, I think. Let's see if it's still in here. Skull Sketch, yep. So currently it's empty. So I kind of let the sketch fall apart since I was just sort of painting on top of this old sketch. I was adding a lot of detail and cleaning things up, but one thing you never want to do is forget that this is supposed to be based on a skull and real anatomy, and the upper part of the head isn't bad at all, but once I opened the jaw, it went from a like 3/4 view to an almost perfect side view, which is a problem. It's not an extreme problem, but I definitely see it, and a slight tweak to these bottom teeth might make things look a lot better. So to help myself figure out where I went wrong is I'm going to make a light color, and I'm going to sketch in a skull. Let me save again. Oh, I already saved recently. Okay. So let's just draw. Oops. I'm going to put this layer on top. There we go. So I can draw on top of everything, and we will carefully, or relatively carefully, draw out this guy's skull. So here's where it gets important. Cheekbone. Alright. So his teeth are basically like this, with that being the middle line. So there's his top. Right? So if that's the case, you're going to put his jaw like this, and it's open. But keep in mind, a jaw goes around like this. So here's the other side. Like this. Maybe that sort of thing. So the teeth would be going around as well. And I can't do that too much because of the way I want to be able to animate it without adding a million layers. But let me see, let me erase a little bit. Oh, let me see if the actual flipping the stylus around to the eraser end, I'm assuming it'll work. Yep, works as an eraser. Excellent. Okay. Yep, I'm still in eraser mode though. B. Raise this up a little bit. Alright. So basically what we're looking at is, pick another color. So we'll say there'll be a tooth here. Teeth, 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 back tooth. Don't want to go that far. Let's see. Yeah. Alright, so now that I know more accurately what it should have looked like, I'm going to select this back tooth layer and Control T. And tweak that a bit. So I don't want to go as far as it was. Like I said, the head already has a lot of layers that are going to have to be carefully created. There's a tongue layer, bottom tooth, bottom teeth, top teeth, the back of the sort of inside of the mouth, that blackness there, and then the eyeball, and then the top eyelid. Those are all separate layers, and the ear and the horns and everything. So I don't want to make things too complicated, but that's already looking a lot better. I just need to bring these lips around now more this way on the face. So let's see. Select the head layer, press B. So let's bring these lips around. There we go. And that was the pin lighting on the edge. So we'll bring that there. Excuse me. There, that looks a lot better actually. Let's see. And then tooth layer. Eraser. Got a little sloppy light edge there. Back to the dark gray outline. There we go. And then top tooth layer. There we go. And I feel like I can afford, I'm gonna hold, no, go to brush, on brush. Hold Control, click and drag the teeth to move them in a little bit. He felt a little over bitey there. There, that's definitely better. Face layer. Just thin this out here. Alrighty. Pretty happy with that. I feel like I do want to make his jaw a little more pronounced, and let's see if we can use the good old transform. Let's see, am I on the head layer? Yes. Yep, head. Alright. So let's grab a bunch of beard. We're going to copy it, paste it down so we don't mess up the beard beneath. And now we're going to edit. Let's see if this works. Transform, mesh transform. And we can even add how many vertices we can manipulate here. So now I can start to stretch this around here and really give him a more extreme beard. Sort of square out his jaw a bit more. And we'll see how well this sort of filtering does. when I'm done editing everything, if we space this out evenly. Hopefully I won't have to de-blur it too much by hand. Press enter when I'm done. Deselect. There we go. It's more manly now. Yeah, I like that a lot better. A lot more, I should say. So now that that's done, I can go in with a fine brush. Went too far there. And pick some really bold darks. And just give it back. Give it more crispness here. And we'll go back in later with some of the mid-tones and highlights as needed to continue to sharpen this up. It's one of the first things I colored in his hair, and I left a lot of the original, very loose sketch from the original monster that I did years back. So I've got to increase the level of detail basically on sharpen it up, make these hairs thinner. So very fine brush, pressing hard. I'm going to get very precise, clean lines. There we go. There we go. I'm happy enough with that. And then I can just merge that right down, Control E. There we go. All right. Now the thing is with stuff like this, as you can imagine, you could just keep going. I could add battle scars to his skin. I can change color palettes and really spend an extremely long time exploring variations, exploring details, always working in separate layers. Like let's say I wanted a battle scar across his entire chest and a little bit onto his shoulder. That would be a little tricky. Luckily with Spriter 2 and deforming, you would be able to do this by keeping it on a separate layer. But to keep things simple, yeah, let's just say we're going to give him a battle scar sort of across this pec and down his abs a bit. That would be another excellent time to use that technique I just showed you, where we're going to select the torso layer, create another copy, duplicate layer, edit, let's see, where are my tonal corrections? This time we're going to go lighter and increase the saturation. Oh no, actually for a scar we should be pretty desaturated. Alright, so let's see how this looks. So now I will use a small brush because I want its edge to be pretty darn strong. So that's a little hard to see, but we should follow the contours a bit. Alright, so now I can use the lasso tool and quickly erase out the other area. Just making sure I've erased it from everywhere else. So now I can go in if I want to, and oh, I can duplicate this entire layer again. Duplicate layer to help me see where I didn't erase it really carefully. Erase it on both layers. But now I can do the same thing. Edit, make sure I'm on the second copy. Yep. So tonal corrections, hue saturation again, brightness again, make it really bright. And now we're going to go back to the eraser and erase even more. The goal is to create a highlighted edge of the scar. Soften it up with a very light pressure on the other side again. And then we can also pick dark colors now, and by hand I'm just going to start casting the shadow of the scar on the other end. That's too fine a brush. So really picking very light colors. Should be very close to the edge. But you get the idea. I could experiment with these. And now he's got a thick battle scar, and then we can, I didn't follow the contour enough, but I might be able to get away with, here we go, and I might not keep this scar. This was just a for instance, but now that I merged it, I can erase it where it overlapped the arm too much, and now I can select the whole thing. Now that it's merged as a single thing, edit, transform, mesh deform, give it more, I don't need much control horizontally, but vertically I do. More still. Let's see if I can do that. No, I can, that rotates it, okay. I was hoping I could select multiple vertices at once. I'm sure you can, but I have no idea how. So basically, I'm going to make it conform to the shape of his body more, which I should have done in the first place, but oops, moving the whole thing accidentally. But you get the idea. This program is pretty awesome. Say that's good enough. Deselect. There. And then the cool thing is, now that we have this scar, we can decide to reduce the opacity of the whole thing if it's too strong. Or I think the better option here would be to actually darken it back down here, or even erase it. So I can just select that area and edit, tonal correction, hue saturation. There we go. There we go. So now we have a scar decal that we can turn on or off. So I'll leave that as a decal, but you can see that's a powerful program. You can really have fun adding details. Yeah, we'll leave it for now. Alright, so let's, I feel like he needs a few veins going this way across his neck actually. Alright, so I'll make sure I have the torso selected. Back to brush. Make sure we follow that. Why am I not getting the right colors? Am I in some kind of strange mode? Did I? I'm just undoing several times here. There we go. there. That one vein made a lot of difference, but I think at least one more will be good. There we go. Don't need to overdo it, but yeah, that looks better. And that was on the right layer. We have the scar. And that strong shadow still works fine. Alright, we'll leave that on. And now I'm going to start doing the same sort of treatment for the most important one is this back thigh here. So I'm going to select that layer and right click and choose duplicate layer, and then edit, excuse me, edit tonal. Oh, Control U. I should have looked at that a long time ago. That would have saved me a lot of time. You were yelling at me to do that, and I just don't listen. Alright, so I'll really darken this up a lot. Desaturate it till it feels about right. Something about there. Maybe even darker still. It's really in dark shadow. That'll be good, I think. Alright. Now that we have that, eraser. And make it fairly large so it'll be a fuzzy, oh, there we go, teleporting again, sorry, fuzzy transition, and start erasing a sensible shape for that shadow cast by the body. There we go. And then I can always change how severe that shadow is. Something like that feels about right, but now I'm going to soften, make the brush even bigger, and I'm going to press even lighter, and I'm going to soften that edge. And I can bring back up the opacity a bit. Let me see. I think my edge got too soft. There we go. There we go. All right. And then of course, like you saw how I did with the scar, you can, I could do this again. I could duplicate this and then use the soft eraser and erase here. And now I've got, I'm sort of transitioning to deeper shadow. Where'd it go? Did I erase everything? Oh, that's right. I needed to darken it more. Silly me. Control U. I have to remember Control U. All right. There we go. Now it looks good. So as you can see, it just gives you really nice control, and because they're actually painterly, they're not just like black with semi-transparency and then different levels of semi-transparency. Because it's got color data built in, I can use hue saturation and color balance much more effectively. Let me save my progress. For example, if I wanted to do what Da Vinci says and look for blue in all shadows, and I want to really make the highlighted parts much more toward, yellow and orange, and the darker shadows more toward blue, we could really go crazy with, so let me pick the darkest layer. And let me do Control U so we get used to it. Control U, there we go. That's much easier. You can see we have hue. Actually, let me do color balance instead. Color balance. So we could pick the halftone shadow or highlight of that. Let's do shadow and bring up those blues. And bring up the cyan. And then do the same thing with that other layer. Edit. What was it again? No, there's no defined key yet, but bring up the blue just a little bit this time. Not as much. And cyan. So you can see now we're getting this really nice range from cools to to the warms, and then we could go back to the torso layer that I had made and do the same thing. Edit, no, not transform, tonal corrections, color balance, and then again in the shadows bring up the blues and the cyans. You get the idea, and I can decide how strong I want that effect to be. A little less strong because it's not quite as shadowed as that leg. But as you can see, we're getting just a huge range of hue and lightness and dark that's really bringing up the sort of photorealistic aspect of this character very quickly. So I actually think I am going to stop recording the stream pretty soon. It's 2:13 a.m. where I am, and I seem to be coming down with a little cold or something. And it's always good, like I said, or I think I've said in the past, it's really good to be able to walk away from a work of art or put it away for a while, days or weeks is best, and come back with a fresh eye before you really call it done to make your final edits. And as you can imagine, tweaking these shades and colors and adding more details it can be very time consuming, especially if you want to explore all possibilities or any possibilities that come to mind. So I think I'll take a break. I'll stop recording, and then if you want to see how the finished one turns out, then eventually this will end up on Redbubble, so keep an eye on my Redbubble account through that link on my Twitch page, and you'll be able to see the finished thing. And if you feel like it, like I said, to support these streams, you can get a t-shirt or a mug or anything else, or you'll just be able to see the finished thing on the Redbubble site. So that's it. I'll just be doing more of the same exact technique to add more shading. I want to cast a better, deeper shadow under that beard again, and finish this enhanced shading under the legs here, under this forearm. And then it'll be pretty much done, or at least done enough for the purpose of the demonstrations. And someday you'll see him animated in a Sprite or 2 teaser video. So that's it for this stream. I hope it was entertaining, and have a great rest of your day.